and it was all misty. You could not see very far, and we sort of stumbled out into the fourth corridor, or the fifth corridor. And I remember seeing one of my coworkers, Clarence, come from another direction, and he was stunned too. And we just sort of looked at each other and just walked out of the building. We walked right out towards where the helicopter pad was. And when we got outside, I remember looking to my left and seeing this big fireball, thinking initially that one of the helicopters blew up on the pad. I still didn't know what had happened, but I had an instinct of feeling that she was choking and having trouble breathing. The baby seemed to be fine, but I knelt down and tried to help her, and there was an NCO, a sergeant there, who had, if I come to know, was Sergeant Sepulveda, I believe, who was attending to her also. And at that point, Clarence said, "Dan, your head's bleeding." And I hadn't even wondered if I was injured. It didn't dawn on me. And then all of a sudden, I put my hand up on my head, and there was blood on it. And I looked at my hands, and my arms were just sort of who was attending to her also. And she was choking and going back there. It was just, the room was completely destroyed. So I sort of looked down at my feet, and there was a woman there with a baby. I didn't know who was in the room at the time. I knew there were people back in the TV room, but there was no going back there. It was just, the room was completely destroyed. So I sort of looked down at my feet, and there was a woman there with a baby. I remember she was where the plane had gone in, and just thinking, how could this? Anyway, I just sort of started wandering away from the building. I remember going around and standing in front of the hole where the plane had gone in, and just thinking, how could this happen? And then at one point I walked after I was out of the building, and at that point I think I must have been stunned. I was stunned anyway. I just sort of started wandering away from the building. I remember going around and standing in front of the hole where the plane had gone in, and just thinking, how could this happen? And then at one point I walked away and sort of congregated where other people had been evacuating the building, and just sat down on the grass. And a man came over and asked me if I was okay, and I said, I guess. I said, I don't know. As my head looked bad, or happen. This is just unbelievable that somebody would stand. And when he finished that speech, that room, and then President Bush came on, and he gave his little speech and talked about how terrorism would not stand. And when he finished that speech, I just felt compelled to get up out of the chair and walk back to my work center. And I thought later that was sort of odd, because here I was, I had a cup of coffee, I'm watching this unbelievable event on television. Why would I just get up and leave? But I did, and as I left, Patty Mickley came and sat down in the chair that I was in, and I vaguely remember some of the other people that were in the room. But I remember seeing Paul Gonzalez at his desk as I walked back. Sandra was at her desk. Rosemary Chapa was at her desk. And I stopped off to see Lance Hokinson, who works in the cubicle next to mine. I just stood there in his office and said, Lance, you can't believe what's going on. You've got to go down and see this on TV. It's just terrible. And Lance turned around in his chair. He was working on a briefing, and he said a couple of words to me, and all of a sudden, our entire room just blew up. I just remember hearing this huge explosion, feeling this energy throw me through the air like I was weightless, and plastering me down to the floor. And I remember seeing orange out of my peripheral vision. And I'm sure I was unconscious just for a few moments, but I don't know how long I was unconscious for. I know when I came to, I was buried under a pile of rubble. I was trapped. I could not move my legs, and I just remember there was this crackling sound of fire.